Welcome to Kruk and Kuip Extra Innings as we are on our Sunday, and spring training is in full action this week. We've got more off-season news. We are going to preview the AL West. Welcome to Kruk and Kuip Extra Innings as we are on our Sunday, and spring training. We're going to preview our NL West this week. Excuse me, the AL West. We're going to preview the AL West, preview a little Oakland A's action, and all the other good stuff and rule change possibly a grievance by MLBPA, all that good stuff this week in a portion we call In Case You Missed It First. You're going to start off with the off-season moves and signings of this week. Baltimore Orioles signed Pedro Alvarez to a minor league contract of $1 million. But it looks like Felix Hernandez might be back on the disabled list after getting hit by a line drive in a game earlier this week, and could be in danger of missing opening day, which hurts the very weak rotation of the Mariners already. The Cincinnati Reds signed Ben Revere to a minor league contract. The Toronto Blue Jays signed closer Sang Hwang-oh to a 1-year, $1.75 million contract. And this time he did pass his physical with the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays designate Ezekiel Carrera for assignment as the corresponding roster move. Andrew Bailey announces retirement and will be in a non-playing roster and will stay as an advisor in the LA Angels organization, and I wish him a lot of luck in his retirement. The MLB Players Association files a grievance against 4 teams over revenue sharing funds. Those teams are the Oakland A's, the Miami Marlins, who recently had their fire sale, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Tampa Bay Rays. And this has been a general issue that's been percolating for some time, as their practices merit examination, and this could have some sort of implications when it comes to the future CBA in 2021. I certainly think that we could see an implement of a salary floor in some way, either it's a cap floor or whatever, to crack down on teams from tanking as they are. So we'll see what happens with that, but I certainly think, and Oakland, that puts Oakland in even a harder situation if they do, once they do lose the revenue sharing money in 2021, if they have to start, it would force probably Billy Beane and John Fisher to actually spend some money if they do implement a salary floor in the next few years. And another injury, White Sox prospect Jake Burger ended up diagnosed with a ruptured Achilles tendon and is likely going to be out for the season. And he was likely was going to spend this season in Double A. And it looks like Brent Honeywell, one of the Rays' top pitching prospects, is going to go undergo Tommy John surgery, and that looks like that he's going to probably miss this season, which very likely puts Matt Andriese in the back end of the starting rotation this year for the Tampa Bay Rays in a year where they're probably going to tank. Former Giant Tim Lincecum. That one next after this. Mike Napoli agrees to terms with the Cleveland Indians on a minor league contract with an opportunity to. So we'll see if Napoli can bring back some of that postseason magic to the Indians this year and could help as a bench role this next year. And former Giant Tim Lincecum agrees to terms with the Texas Rangers on a $1 million 1 year. That's mostly incentive-laden contract with the Texas Rangers in hopes to reviving his career. He will likely probably start and the Rangers do intend to use Lincecum out of the bullpen, where he could compete for a closer job. And he did look a little more muscled up this year. Took last season off, and maybe the year off helped Lincecum build some muscle, and he can hopefully he can definitely tear it up as a reliever this year in an organization where they're probably going to be going through a rebuild this year in Texas. I'll get to that a little bit later on. But I certainly think Lincecum can compete for the closer job with the Rangers this year, as they do go in probably what's going to be a rebuild year for Texas. And I wish him a lot of luck. Hopefully, it works out a lot better than it did for him with the Angels organization a couple seasons ago. The New York Mets signed A.J. Griffin to a minor league contract. And will Price start the season either in the bullpen or in the minors? Daniel Nava undergoes back surgery and probably will be out for the majority of this season. He probably would have came off the bench anyways, so. Yuli Gurriel is going to undergo surgery for his left hamate bone, and he will be out 5 to 6 weeks, and then will start a rehab assignment, and then he will probably start his 5-game suspension next season when he is activated from the disabled list. And the Royals signed Lucas Duda to a 1 year, $3.5 million contract, and will definitely be in a mentor role and will try to fill the void of Eric Hosmer, who left for San Diego as a stopgap option at first base for Kansas City this year. And they also designate outfielder Billy Burns for assignment. And we'll see where he ends up. The Pirates signed Kevin Segras to a minor league contract today. And the Blue Jays outright Ezekiel Carrera to AAA. Cubs signed Danny Holtzen to a minor league contract. Travis Wood diagnosed with a torn ACL injury in the minor league contract. So he is definitely going to miss significant time with an ACL injury and will probably, and a hello to Matt Von Hook. So pretty good chance that he'll miss a good part of the season with the ACL injury. The Washington Nationals agreed to a minor league contract with former Giant Alejandro Diaz, and he spent last year with the National organization and would like to crack the roster next year as that in a bench role next year again. Yankees signed Adam Lind to a minor league contract. We shall see how he does. And he came off a good season last year where he hit 303 in 301 plate appearances. He certainly could be a good cheap option for the Yankees. He could end up being a bit. So he might stay in the Yankees as a bench option, with Tyler Austin likely to crack the rotation, but he could end up with him having options. He could end up likely going to their AAA team. Reds claim Jairo Laborte from the Tigers off of waivers. Baltimore Orioles signed Danny Valencia to a minor league contract and definitely would be a cheap option to help the infield. He could be a bench role to help as a left platoon partner for Chris Davis if he does well in spring training. And from the LA Dodgers, they lose reliever Tom Kohler to a mild anterior capsule strain and could be out for an extended time. He struggled in the Marlins organization, but he did well as a bullpen guy last year in the Blue Jays organization. But that definitely hurts the Dodgers bullpen, which has taken quite a bit of hits this offseason. So that's going to hurt them in some way, shape, or form, depending on if anybody from Oklahoma City can step up and crack the roster or not. But he now could end up on a 60-day disabled list. Reds designate Ryan Schimpf for assignment to make room for Gogo. The Chicago White Sox signed Robbie Ross to a minor league contract, who had an injury-shortened campaign last year and looks to impress to possibly come out of the bullpen for the White Sox this year. And the Oakland A's designate Brandon Moss for assignment, which could likely end his career in the majors, as they claimed Jairo Laborte off of waivers from the Reds. And he came to the A's organization in a trade in the Ryan Buchter trade. But yeah, if he doesn't land another MLB contract, which is very likely doesn't, he will probably retire. And now that wraps it up for for the signings this week. Now on to the roster battles of the Giants for this week. He was trending up and trending down this week. And right now it looks like Gregor Blanco is certainly could lock down one of the could lock down a roster roles. He's done pretty well in spring training thus far. Brandon Belt starting to look healthy after concussion issues last year. Jonah Arenado looks pretty good. It'll be interesting to see if Arenado ends up in Sacramento or Double A this year, but I think he's certainly got some work to do. Tyler Beatty thus far, he's looking like he's going to need more seasoning in Sacramento as he's not looked that great in spring training thus far. Derek Holland definitely looks like he's going to probably be the swing man out of the pen with as of right now. And Julian Fernandez, the Rule 5 draftee who's supposed it's looking like the Giants are going to end up forfeiting back that pick, giving up a draft pick to Colorado off of Julian Fernandez, as he's not looked that all that wonderful out of the pen thus far. So Julian Fernandez definitely has some work to do. Tyler Rogers has looked pretty good thus far. I think the Submariner has some chance of cracking the roster. He's definitely going to be somebody to watch in Sacramento in event of injuries. Shaw's definitely Miguel Gomez is definitely pushing Kelby Tomlinson right now for one of the 25-man roster spots. And Tomlinson cannot be, and this would not be good if Tomlinson has to start the year in AAA. I certainly think as Kelby Tomlinson's certainly getting near to the point where this is going to be his last year of options. So he needs to put up or shut up at this point, or I could see Kelby Tomlinson get moved. Ty Block looked pretty good this week. He's, as I said, he's probably could lock down the 5 spot. Andrew Suarez, he definitely looks to compete for the 5 spot at this point, but I certainly think he'll be the top guy in Sacramento to watch. We'll see how he does in a full year of PCL pitching. See how close he is to MLB ready. And Mac Williamson's definitely had a good spring training thus far. But we shall see as he gets more tougher and tougher pitchers as we get deeper into spring training. Looks like Ryder Jones has suffered a hamstring injury. Will probably go on the disabled list. Hector Sanchez likely to be on the disabled list, which likely puts. Then again, maybe not, but it might end up putting Trevor Brown on the disabled list for the time on the 40-man roster for the time being. And Steven Duggar is definitely tearing it up in spring training. I know the organization would prefer him to be down in AAA for the start of the year, but I think Duggar is, and he's looked great defensively and offensively. I certainly think Duggar could actually win a 25-man roster spot out of spring training this year. This might definitely be a kid to watch in the majors this year. Can he be a rookie of the year candidate? We'll see. But we'll see how his power translates to AT&T Park later this season. And then Evan Longoria the other day hit his first bye-bye baby for the Giants and showed why the Giants traded for him. Garrett Parker, he's definitely looking like a candidate to be DFA'd and could end up being the odd man out depending on how Gorkis Hernandez does. Still got time to recover, but it's not looking good for Garrett Parker, especially if Duggar wins the opening day roster. I certainly think Jarrett Parker is going to be waived since he is out of options. But we shall see as we go into the second week of spring training next week. And now it is on to the AL West previews for this week. And of course, as I've done with the last two divisions, I'm going to go from last to first. This year in the AL West, my fifth place team this year is going to be the Texas Rangers. The rotation is not that great, and I could see Cole Hamels getting traded out of Texas. And this could be the last year of Adrian Beltre in Arlington, as this rotate and the bullpen's not wonderful. I really don't see them. There's just too many question marks, too many holes with the batting order and the rotation for me to even think. I think at some point this year, the Texas Rangers are certainly going to end up tanking this year. So I think the Rangers, they're definitely going to be in last place this year. My fourth place team for this year, the Oakland A's. They are not doomed to be in last place. They definitely have some kids who can hit home runs. And they could even, and believe it or not, they could even look better if they acquire a catcher. I am not sold on Bruce Maxwell being the everyday catcher for the Oakland A's. And I certainly think that they should actually look to sign Jonathan Lucroy. I certainly think Lucroy could be a good fit for the young rotation with the A's. So I definitely think Billy Beane should go out and sign Lucroy before the season starts. And he would definitely be a good bat to go with a lot of the young bats they have already. But if the rotation can get it together this year, I certainly can't see why maybe the A's are maybe could compete to be a 500 team this year. Kendall Graveman, if he can get it together, if Daniel Mangden, he definitely looked good before he got hurt. If Mangden can have a healthy year this year, I think Daniel Mangden could be a good pitcher. Paul Blackburn looked pretty good in some points. And then you got Jarrell Cotton, who definitely wants to impress this year after having a really bad year for the A's last year. I think Cotton's one that would like to win one of the back end of the rotation spots this year. And I certainly think Cotton had such a bad year last year. He ended up spending half of his year in Nashville. And then you got Frank Triggs. Triggs is another one that could go back and forth between the bullpen and the starting rotation. He could be in the swingman role this year for the A's. And their closer this year is going to probably be Ryan Buchter, who faltered in Kansas City. And I think Buchter is a definitely good project for the A's. And it may not hurt to sign a veteran starter before the season starts, but I think I definitely think it's time to give Lucroy a call. I would not put I think Bruce Maxwell's should not even be on the roster for the A's, honestly. But I think this is going to be a young, scrappy team in Oakland this year, and they're not going to finish in the cellar this year. They could even compete with the Mariners to be a 500 team this year. My third place team, the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners need to sign another starter. It can't be all James Paxton this season in Seattle, especially with King Felix being injury prone the last couple seasons. They need to bring in they definitely need to sign another starter before the season starts. They can't rely on Mike Leake, and the back end of the rotation was awful last year. I think they need to definitely give Alex Cobb a call, maybe Lance Lynn. But Seattle, Jerry DiPoto definitely needs to get on the phones and sign a Lance Lynn or a Alex Cobb if Seattle wants any hope of making the postseason this year. But I think the bats will be okay in Seattle. But I certainly think if things go south for the Mariners this year, it wouldn't surprise me if Scott Service loses his job in Seattle. Certainly think Scott Service is managing for his job this season, and the Mariners need to. And it's playoffs are bust for the Mariners at this point. And I don't think the Mariners are going to be any if they don't sign a pitcher or acquire another starter. It's going to cost Scott Service his job this season. Yeah, they haven't made the playoffs since 2001. So I definitely think Seattle's going to it's make or break for the Mariners this year, or they're going to cycle through another manager. And then the pressure is going to shift to Jerry DiPoto. My number 2 team this year, the LA Angels. And I don't think Artie Moreno is done acquiring talent either. I certainly think Artie Moreno could have another trick up his sleeve and maybe sign a. I certainly think they might sign another pitcher, as Shohei Ohtani is looking like the real thing thus far in spring training for the Angels. And then you got if Garrett Richards can stay healthy, he's definitely a good option for the rotation. Shoemaker wants to stay. Can Shoemaker stay healthy for the Angels? You got Matt Shoemaker, who's coming off an injury ravaged season. Blake Wood is one who's trying to crack one of the back ends of the starting rotation for the Angels. Got Parker Bridwell, who definitely doesn't want to have a down year. But the Angels, I certainly wouldn't surprise me if Artie Moreno goes after a Lance Lynn or a Alex Cobb before the season starts too. But they certainly have the bats in LA this year. I think you definitely got Mike Trout. You've got Justin Upton back. Ian Kinsler could be a good bat. I don't, and they could go out and sign a. I wouldn't even surprise me if Artie Moreno goes out and signs Greg Holland. They definitely need a closer for the Angels. And I think Artie Moreno is going to do what it takes to try to keep this roster a contender this year and make them competitive for the playoffs this year. So I'm going to put the Angels at 2, and I think they will make the wild card this year. And my number 1 team, the defending champions, Houston Astros. The starting rotation definitely got much better this offseason. Yes, I agree. The Angels will be much better. But it's crazy to think the Astros rotation's better this year than what it was last year. You're going to have Dallas Keuchel. You're going to have Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole as a 3-headed monster. And then you got Lance McCullers and Charlie Morton rounding out your starting rotation in Houston. And then you got Colin McHugh, who may or may not stay on the Astros. I certainly think McHugh could be trade bait if they need another lefty out of the pen. And then they've also got Brad Peacock, who's going to probably be the swing man out of the bullpen this year for the Astros. So a back-to-back championship, certainly. I certainly think they're going to be. It's going to be between them and the Yankees this year. And then of course you got Altuve. Of course you got the batting order is going to be lethal. And crazy part is they might unload one of their pitchers to acquire JT Realmuto, who would definitely be an upgrade from definitely would be an upgrade from McCann. So you could, I certainly think the Astros are it's a real possibility they can be back-to-back champions. But I certainly think that it's the road to the World Series will go through Houston again this year. And crazy thing is, they could get even better before the end of the year, as I think they will definitely do what they can to upgrade the bullpen and stuff during the year. Are they going to win as many games as last year? I don't know. I don't think they're going to win 100 games this year. They'll probably win 90 to 95 to 100, but I think the focus is going to be is going to be the postseason. It's going to be a really but it's going to be a really good year and it's going to be a really competitive year for the AL West. Next week we start previewing the National League and we'll start with the NL East. Everybody have a good week. I am going to go off and watch the Sharks game. Everybody have a good night. Peace.